Hi, this is Mr. Dudley, and I want to share with you how to add mixed numbers. If you're in my class, this example will be number 31 in your homework packet. Okay, here's the example. 4 1/5 plus 5 9/10. These are both mixed numbers because they have a whole number and a fractional part. Okay, I like to use a method I came up with called the 4S's. I have a video on the 4S's on my channel. You can check that out. It's not any different than you probably learned to do a mixed number anywhere else, except it helps me stay organized and it helps my students stay organized. So here's what I like to do. I start with a quadrant like this, 4 sections on my paper. Okay, and the 4S's you will see as we go along. So the first thing I like to do is rewrite the problem, because the problem is not always on paper for us. A lot of times it's on a computer screen, on a standardized test, or on an assessment, and so we always rewrite the problem. So that's this quadrant. We rewrite the problem. Okay, the first S, we're going to skip count. To find a common denominator for these two fractions, that's essential to add them. So the way I teach my students to do it is to skip count the two fractions. So I have to write my two fractional parts over here. We're going to forget about the whole numbers for just a moment. 1/5 and 9/10. Okay, I'm going to give myself a few fraction bars here. I'm going to skip count all the numerators and denominators, starting with the fraction with the smallest denominator. So I'm going to skip count by ones, which is just counting 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and if I skip count by fives for the denominator, it's going to give me 4 equivalent fractions to choose from: 10, 15, 20. So now I have 4 equivalent fractions that I can choose from to solve this problem, because I know I need to have the same denominator on both fractions. If you notice, I already have a common denominator. I have 2/10 here and 9/10 here, and I'm going to use those. And by starting with the fraction with the smaller denominator, I actually saved the step of skip counting this bigger fraction, which saves me a little bit of time. So I don't even need to do the skip counting here because I already found my common denominator. Okay, so that's the first S, skip count. There's an S right there, see? Okay, the second S is substitute. And I'm going to go ahead and give you the third S because it goes in the same box: substitute and solve. We're going to substitute and solve in the same quadrant. Okay, so the first thing I do is substitute these equivalent fractions for the original fractions in the original problem. So 4 1/5 becomes 4 2/10, because this fraction here is equivalent to 1/5. I could pick any of those 4 fractions and plug it in there, but I picked that one because the denominator matches the denominator for my other mixed number. So now you'll see in a moment we can solve this problem. I don't need to substitute anything for the second mixed number. So now I have 4 2/10 plus 5 9/10. Now I can solve. I'm going to solve in the same box. We start by, I'm going to switch colors, adding the mixed numbers together. 4 and 5 become 9.
Mr. Gunner, call the main office. Or send the order form to the PA printer for the t-shirt.
Four and 5.
Dr. Thomas, will do. Send the order form right now.
4 and 5 become 9, and then I'm going to add the numerators. 2 and 9 get added together to become 11, and the denominator stays the same. So I've solved my adding mixed numbers problem. Now, the fourth S, I bet you can guess, is simplify, because we always must provide our answers in simplest form. I don't know any math teachers who let you get away with not simplifying your answer. And you'll notice that our mixed number is a mixed number, but it also contains an improper fraction because 11 is larger than 10, so 11/10 is an improper fraction. We need to simplify it, so we're going to simplify over here in this box, so that because if you just keep going, things get a little messy, and the boxes just help us stay organized. Okay, so 9 and 11/10. Okay, if you watch my video on turning an improper fraction to a mixed number, this is the same thing. We're going to turn this improper fraction into a mixed number by dividing. Okay, the top goes in the house. That's how we remember how to do turn a fraction to a mixed number. The top goes in the house. So 11 goes on the inside, 10 goes on the outside. 10 will go into 11 once. 1 times 10 is 10. 11 minus 10 is 1, and we stop right there with the remainder. We don't keep going. We're not looking for a decimal. We stop right there. This is the whole number. This is the new numerator. And of course, 10 is the denominator. So I'm going to rewrite that. Don't forget the 9. We've got to bring the 9 down. 11/10 becomes, I'm going to add plus here. You'll see why in a second. 1. 1 is the whole number. And the new numerator is also 1 over 10. The denominator stays the same. So 11/10 is equivalent to 1 and 1/10. I added the plus sign because I need to add these two whole numbers together. You can't forget about the 9, but now there's a new whole number that came from the improper fraction. So now the last little bit is to add those two whole numbers together. 9 plus 1 is 10. That's easy. 10 and 1/10 is the fractional part, and that is our answer. That is how you add mixed numbers. You won't always have to do this last step. The only reason we had to do it is because our answer here was an improper fraction. So this step is only required if you have an improper fraction. You'll also need to simplify if your fraction is not in simplest form. For example, if it was divisible by 2, both were divisible by 2 or 3, you need to simplify, but we'll see that maybe in another example. All right. If you have any questions, leave me a comment below, and don't forget to hit the like button.